Sacred India. In this country, since time immemorial, the people have been seeking the truth through bhakti, worship, devotion, love, and faith to God. The world of faith and pure love without limits had been raised there. What is Bhakti Yoga? These days, there are various types of yoga, and most of them belong to a branch known as Hatha Yoga. Yoga can be classified into the following categories along with their respective, succinct definitions. Bhakti Yoga. This yoga is practiced to achieve enlightenment through love and devotion to God. Karma Yoga. This yoga is practiced to achieve enlightenment through selfless services. Jnana Yoga. This yoga is practiced to achieve enlightenment through philosophical thought. Raja Yoga. This yoga is practiced to achieve enlightenment through concentration on the self. Hatha Yoga. This yoga is practiced to focus on physical exercise. Kundalini Yoga. This yoga is practiced to achieve enlightenment through awakened Kundalini energy. In the present age, it is necessary to practice these yoga types in their entirety. In the sense of modern times say that the most important yoga type is Bhakti Yoga. What is called yoga now mostly indicates asana and pranayama, which form part of Hatha Yoga. Regrettably, other styles of yoga are not well known today. Bhakti and Karma Yoga are the most important forms of yoga, yet they are virtually unknown and oftentimes misunderstood. Bhakti Yoga is called the yoga of love and faith, but in fact it includes many subtle and complex factors. Therefore, because of its vagueness, many people misunderstand the true essence of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga isn't something that can be grasped by solely relying on one's mental faculties. In fact, by doing so, the possibility of gaining a concrete understanding of the true essence of Bhakti Yoga can often be hindered. The most important aspect of Bhakti Yoga is purity of heart. An open, pure heart, like that of a child, it is the only key to capture the true essence of Bhakti. Bhakti Yoga, although complex, once grasped, even to a limited extent, can quickly bring great happiness and an overall feeling of achievement in one's life. It is also worth noting that Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism are essentially akin to that of Bhakti. In particular, the Bible has been preached in a manner very similar to that of Bhakti Yoga. It is love for God and abandonment of the self. It is true that the essence of religion and spiritualism is always Bhakti through all ages and cultures. It seems, however, that whilst many religions tend to share similar tenets, the true nature of Bhakti has somehow been lost by superficial misinterpretation through the ages. On a more positive note, the principles of Bhakti have been passed down from generation to generation in the holy land of India, with the several saints appearing one after the other. It seems fit to subsequently give a brief introduction of the unknown saints of Bhakti, in order that you may gain some form of insight into Bhakti Yoga. The life of saints. Chaitanya, an evangelist of devotion in the trance. He is a great saint who appeared around the end of the 15th century and has been worshipped as Avatar, an incarnation of God in the Bengal region. Starting a great movement of Bhakti, he propagated the splendor of Bhakti Yoga that was at the time hidden from the minds of the people. Chaitanya intensely devoted himself to Krishna and preached to the people the importance of devotion to God. And when ecstatic devotion for Krishna arose in his mind, he would shout the name of Krishna and call him like a madman without any regard to the external world. That was the state of holy madness arising from the ecstatic devotion to God to be preached in Hindu scriptures. Thus Chaitanya showed, by his example, that what is required is a single-minded devotion to God, through which in this dark age, people can achieve salvation. He preached, we could reach this state of ecstatic devotion to God mainly by chanting, singing, and glorifying the name of God. Some scriptures also says the kirtan, singing the glory of God, is the easiest and best form of yoga in this age of all the methods to approach God. And Chaitanya acted as a catalyst of the current great Bhakti movement by singing and dancing around the town along with his disciples and devotees. Tulsidas, a saint of poetry who devoted his life to Sri Rama. Appearing in the 16th century, he had a deep devotion to Lord Rama and left behind many poems and books about one's devotion to God. He was always chanting the name of Rama and was immersed in it. Even reverse, he didn't cry like any other babies, but chanted the name of Rama, Ram Ram. One day, he got inspiration from Lord Shiva and wrote Sri Rama Chaitmans, a modern Hindi version of Ramayana. The book was inspired by a very beautiful poem which incites the feelings of bhakti and has been familiar to a lot of Indian people even up until this day. Meerabai, a saint of him living with love for Krishna. She was a saint of poetry who had appeared between the 15th and the 16th century and possessed a deep faith in Lord Krishna since childhood. A lot of people have been attracted by her hymns of pure love for Krishna that capture even the hearts of modern people. She was born a princess of a small country and had married a young prince of the Rana royal family who later died in the war. So she became a widow, and she got caught up in the struggle for power of royalty because she had previously been a prince's wife. Even though Meera had no interest in the throne, she began to be persecuted by relatives of the Rana family in a variety of ways. On one occasion, relatives of the Rana family gave her a basket as a gift with the message, "A garland for you." But in fact, it was not a garland, but a terrible cobra. Upon receiving the basket, Meera opened it after having meditated on Krishna. However, inside it was an adorable Krishna statue with a garland instead of a cobra. On another occasion, her brother-in-law sent her poisoned water disguised as nectar. Meera offered it to Lord Krishna and regarded it as prasad or offerings to God. Then the moment she drank it, it really became a delicious and bliss-inducing nectar. And another time, her brother-in-law sent her a bed shrouded with sharp nails and ordered her to lie on it. But when she lay on it, it became a bed of roses. As a result of her pure faith, and by regarding everything as Krishna's love, all things naturally deemed as sinister really became gifts from Krishna. And at last, her brother-in-law became annoyed with her as a result of some misunderstanding and ordered her to commit suicide by throwing herself into the river. She feverishly danced and sang in ecstasy on her way to the river. And when she was about to dive into the river, someone clasped her from behind and embraced her. When Meera looked back, she saw the beloved Lord Krishna was behind her. Then Lord Krishna smiled and whispered gently, "My dear Meera, your life with horrible relatives is over now. Now you are free, so be happy. You have been and will be mine forever." apart from one's own judgment of good or bad, and the conceptions and misconceptions, and accept everything as God's love. This is the practice of surrendering in Bhakti Yoga. When this can be accomplished, nothing negative nor incomplete will exist, and this world will turn straight into the pure land of bliss. Afterward, according to the instruction of Krishna, Meera went to Vrindavan, the holy place of Krishna, and spent her days worshipping God. And at last, it is said that she dissolved into the statue of Krishna, which she had had with her all through her life. Swami Shivananda, a saint who practiced all forms of yoga and preached the importance of them. He was a great modern saint who lived until 1963 and who originally was a doctor. But he always wondered if there was an essential way to be the salvation of people, and became a monk at age 36. However, even in days immersed in his own ascetic practices, his innate spirits of compassion and service to the others did not have to disappear. Shivananda said, "Always create the opportunity to serve others. Do not lose a single opportunity in serving and helping others. You must actively make the opportunities. You shouldn't merely wait for the opportunity to serve, but rather always be proactive in serving others." Bhakti Yoga has an aspect of selfless service to people. There are a lot of people suffering in this world, and God dwells in all people. So, those who love God regard others as a manifestation of God and serve them with their whole body and soul, depending totally on God and accepting God's love as preached in Bhakti Yoga, are not merely passive. One who really loves God works with his whole mind and body for the sake of his beloved and revered Lord, and he leaves all matters that come as a result to God. Shivananda, who had finally entered the Samadhi at the age of 43, realized the truth and then started to proceed with the full-scale relief efforts. He continued to vigorously write books for purposes of his missionary work and published more than 300 books. Bhakti and Karma Yoga were features of his teaching, but he recommended practicing the good parts of various yoga in a well-balanced manner. And one day, during his final moments, he dictated to his disciple, "True happiness comes when the individual merges in God." He then became speechless. That was the last of his teachings as dictated by Shivananda, and accordingly taken down by his disciple. 2 days before his death, a woman named Devaki Kuti gave a piece of paper and a pen to Shivananda, and he began to write a message to her. "Remember, don't forget." The pad was raised to enable him to write the following, but he said quietly, "That is enough," and he said to her, "Remember, you are a goddess, and not Devaki Kuti." Ramakrishna, the greatest saint of modern times, who preached that all religions are one. He is the greatest modern saint who appeared about 150 years ago and was believed to be the incarnation of Lord Vishnu in the Bengal region. At the invitation of his eldest brother, Ramakrishna began to work at Kali Temple in Calcutta as his assistant when he was 19 years old. However, after a while, his brother suddenly passed away, so he was placed in charge of the rituals at the temple. During that time, his devotion and enthusiasm got stronger and stronger. His mind was constantly directed at only the Mother Goddess. He scarcely slept or ate, because the blood in his body always moved toward the chest and the brain. His chest was always reddish, and sometimes his eyes welled with sudden tears. And he was constantly tormented by the frustration of how he could see the figure of the Mother Goddess. One day, after a while, he thought he might not be able to see Mother Goddess. He felt a deep sense of suffering and was dying from despair. Instead of anguish, he concluded that there was no reason to live in this world, and decided to end his own life by using the sword hung in the shrine of the Mother Goddess. At the moment when he ran toward the shrine like a madman and grabbed the sword, he saw the wondrous vision of Mother Kali. Afterward, he devoted himself to the practices of the various schools of Hinduism and perfected each of them. In this way, he mastered not only all paths of Hinduism, but also those of Islam and Christianity, and had thus reached the same ultimate state even in them. Thereby, through his own experience, he uncovered the truth that all religions and all worships lead us to one and the same goal. To the question, how we can see God, Ramakrishna answered, "Cry to the Lord with an intensely yearning heart, and you will certainly see Him." People shed lots of tears for their wives and children. They cry for money with enough tears to fill a pond and swim in it. But who weeps for God? Cry to Him with a desperate and earnest heart. You do not see God because you busy yourself with such things as name and fame and scholarship. So long as the child remains engrossed with his toy, the mother takes care of the cooking and tends to the other household duties. Her child is playing with the red cute toy which children would like. But when the child no longer relishes in playing with his toys, he throws them aside and wails for his mother. The mother then takes the rice pot down from the hearth, runs in haste and takes the child in her arms. Then Ramakrishna sang, "Cry to your mother with a real cry, O mind. And how can she hold herself from you? How can mother stay away? How can your Mother Kali hold herself away? O mind, if you are in earnest, bring her an offering of bell leaves and hibiscus flowers. Lay at her feet of offering, and with it mingle the fragrant sandal paste of love." Swami Vivekananda, a Leonine saint preaching Hindu spirituality to the West. He is a modern saint who was the first person to bring yoga into the West and was the best disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. He possessed a special aptitude for many things, including learning, playing sports, as well as the arts. In his youth, seeking God eagerly, he visits various kinds of religious leaders and dared to ask them whether or not they had seen God. However, no one gave him the answer he wanted. One day, he heard about Sri Ramakrishna and got an opportunity to meet him. He then asked Sri Ramakrishna the same question that he had been asking other religious leaders. Sri Ramakrishna answered right back without a moment's hesitation, "Yes, I see God, as I see you here, really distinctly." Vivekananda was surprised. He finally met a man who could see God. From that time, he began to accept Sri Ramakrishna as his master. And after a few years, knowing that Sri Ramakrishna had developed pharyngeal cancer and didn't have much longer to live, Vivekananda announced to Sri Ramakrishna, "It is my desire to remain absorbed in samadhi continually for 3 or 4 days." Then Sri Ramakrishna scolded him and said, "Shame on you. You are such a small-minded person. I thought that you would grow like a big banyan tree under whose shade millions of people would take refuge. Instead, you are only thinking of your own individual salvation." Sri Ramakrishna expected him to see God in all things and to serve for the sake of their happiness. Scolded by Sri Ramakrishna in this way, Vivekananda understood the greatness of his heart and cried bitterly. He consequently crossed the sea to the west on the mission of Sri Ramakrishna and attended the World Congress of Religions. As a result of having preached that all religions are one and that there is only the absolute God in all religions, which was a feature of the teachings of his master, Sri Ramakrishna, he achieved great success. The speech of Vivekananda on the mission of God strongly grabbed the hearts of the audience. After the speech, there was a near splitting vigorous applause from the crowd. Thence he traveled to the United States and Europe and around India, and devoted all his life to propagate yoga and to serve poor people. He was a pioneer who introduced the teaching and practices of the authentic yoga to the West. And at the age of just 39, his short travel and life came to an end as a result of these intense activities. In his later years, at the end of his mission project, he began to talk about his love for his master Ramakrishna, which up to the point had been all bottled up. After all, I am only the boy who used to listen with rapt wonderment to the wonderful words of Ramakrishna under the banyan tree at Dakshineshwar. That is my true nature. Everything else amounts to mere superimpositions. Now I again hear his voice, the same old voice which captured my soul. Only the voice of the Master calling. I come, my beloved Lord, I come.